Narcissist doesn't begin to fall apart when you leave. They begin to fall apart when you no longer feel anything. No more anger, no more hurt, no need for answers, no desire for closure, just quiet inside. A silence they can't manipulate. And in that very moment, their power ends. Because to a narcissist, a nod, a tear, even an angry message is proof they still control the emotional current in you. They don't need your love. They just need to know you're still entangled, still unaware, still not free. But the moment you rise, not needing an apology, not needing them to understand, not needing them to witness it, they lose what they fear the most, the mirror of your presence. You used to be the person they relied on to feel important, the mirror they looked into to believe they still had value, the one they could make cry, doubt yourself, or come back, just to prove they were still the center of someone's world. So when you sit down, take a deep breath and whisper to yourself, "I don't feel anything about this anymore," you just laid the first stone sealing the doorway they used to walk through into your life. They won't understand it right away. They'll think you're playing the silent game. They'll wait for you to react like before, but you're no longer that version of yourself. You no longer need them to complete your emotions. You don't need to win, you just need peace. And when that happens, the collapse begins. Not in your world, but in theirs. A world that only worked as long as someone stayed behind to reflect them. To understand why your emotional detachment causes a narcissist to collapse, you first need to grasp one thing. They don't exist like ordinary people. They don't build their identity from internal values, they don't self-reflect to grow, and they don't know how to regulate emotions in a healthy way. They function more like an artificial ecosystem, completely dependent on others' emotional reactions to define, who am I? In the narcissist's inner world, other people's emotions are the only resource that makes them feel real. Every look of admiration feeds their ego. Every tear you shed is proof of their power. Every time you get angry, suffer, or come back, it's a silent confirmation that I'm still the center of their mind. And because of that, you don't need to beg or argue to be manipulated. You just need to feel. Feel guilty, feel conflicted, feel hopeful, feel afraid to be alone. Every one of those emotions is a cord that connects you to the narcissist, and they're holding the other end of that cord. They don't need your love in a pure, selfless sense. They just need you to stay attached. They just need a sign that you're still reacting. Whether it's tears, anger, or a cryptic status update, any emotional response is, to them, evidence that they're still in control. So when you start quietly cutting those cords, when you stop reacting, stop overanalyzing, stop trying to untangle their chaos in your mind, that ecosystem begins to dry up. Just like a living organism can't photosynthesize without sunlight, a narcissist can't maintain psychological stability without someone else constantly affirming their worth. And you, the brightest source of that light, when you silently withdraw, you leave them alone in the darkness they themselves created. In that moment, they don't just miss you, they begin to miss themselves, because they never had a true sense of self that existed apart from someone else's presence. Emotional detachment at first glance might sound like something cold, heartless, or even like running away, but in truth it is one of the deepest and most powerful signs of healing, because to sit with your pain, to look back at a relationship full of hurt and still say, "I choose to let go," but not with hate, that is not weakness. That is a quiet kind of strength a narcissist can never understand. In the narcissist's world, emotions are not for connection, they're for control. They're used to manipulating others with sulking, playing the victim, or handing out affection as a conditional reward. And because they operate through that warped emotional lens, they cannot imagine someone walking away without needing to react. That's why when you begin to detach, not by hardening your heart, but by releasing your emotional dependence on them, you truly dismantle the system they rely on. You no longer seek an apology. You no longer try to understand why they changed. You no longer play the silent game, waiting for their next move. You've left the chessboard. You don't need to win anymore. You just want peace. And that's exactly what terrifies a narcissist. Because when you're angry, they still have hope. When you cry, they still hold power. When you push back, they still feel in control. But when you smile, quietly, and walk away without needing a response, you confront them with something they're not equipped to handle. Powerlessness. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you've stopped loving the person you once cared for. It means you've accepted that you're no longer willing to trade your inner peace for something that was never real. It's the soul's maturity, when you finally understand that compassion can't heal someone who doesn't want to change, and that your heart deserves a presence that truly values it. You didn't shut down your feelings, you just stopped allowing someone else to control them. And in the narcissist's world, that means one thing: the end. No more games, no more roles, no more power. Only you remain, standing firm in the land of emotional freedom, not needing them to understand, not needing their regret, and not needing them to know that you outgrew their influence long ago. Your emotional detachment doesn't cause an instant earthquake in the narcissist's world, but it is the first crack, a quiet fracture, that begins to burrow deep into the already fragile and distorted foundation of their psyche. And as that crack spreads, pieces start to fall, marking phases of collapse they can no longer control. No one hears the sound of it, but it's happening, from the inside. The first phase is always denial. In the narcissist's mind, you can't possibly let go of them for real. They believe you're playing a new game, that your silence is just another tactic to make them chase you. They're used to you always reacting, always feeling something, whether it's love or rage. So when you become still and peaceful, they don't see it as the end. They see it as another dramatic performance, and they wait for you to return to the stage. But then time passes. You don't call, you don't drop hints, you don't care about their new partner, you don't react. And that's when they shift into the reactivation phase. This is when they start trying to stir emotions in you, posting cryptic photos, sending fake check-ins, or even creating a crisis just so you'll come back to save them. But what sends them into panic is that you still don't respond. Every bet falls into silence. It's in this moment that they enter the identity confusion phase. Without you reflecting them back, they scramble between personas. One day they're the kind ex, the next the heartbroken victim. Then suddenly they're detached, saying, "I'm fine," but none of those roles feel real enough to keep them grounded. They look in the mirror and don't recognize themselves, because most of their identity was built around what you felt about them, and now you feel nothing. They begin to disappear. To fight the emptiness, the narcissist moves into the phase of rage and distortion. They start smearing you, blaming you, painting you as heartless, fake, or playing the victim. They rewrite the story to make you the one who left for no reason, because the truth is too painful to face, that they destroyed the relationship through manipulation, apathy, and control. They cannot accept that reality, so they twist it. And when even the lies no longer work, when no one buys their script anymore, they fall into the final phase, silent collapse. This is the most dangerous phase, not because of their outward behavior, but because of the internal unraveling. They might still post pictures, still smile, still act successful, but their eyes are lost, their sleep is shallow, their mind unsettled. They don't know who they are without someone to manipulate, without someone to control, without someone to define them, and the brutal truth surfaces: their entire existence had only ever been a reflection of you. When you decisively walk away from that game, you don't just reclaim your own freedom, you dismantle the entire false psychological system they depended on to survive. And the irony is, You didn't do it with revenge or rage. You did it by feeling nothing at all. A narcissist cannot recover from your emotional detachment, not because you were too special to them, but because that detachment forces them to face something they've been avoiding their entire lives, themselves. And for someone who lives behind masks, manipulation, and the reactions of others, there is nothing more terrifying than having to look inward, with no one nearby to blame. You may have once believed that if you left, they'd realize their mistakes, that losing you would be the shock that made them change. But that's only possible for someone capable of introspection, for someone with the ability to self-reflect. A narcissist does not possess that skill. Their psychology is built on defense mechanisms, not emotional maturity. They don't learn to process pain. They learn to avoid it, manipulate it, and assign it to someone else. So when you detach with peace, they have no tools to deal with it. They can't fight silence. They can't win a game the other player has walked away from. And that's when every tactic in their arsenal becomes useless. From silent treatments and love bombing to victimhood delusions and showcasing a new partner like a trophy, none of it matters if you no longer respond. You're no longer a target. You've become a void, and that void is what they cannot bear. They may try to replace you, but replacements only recreate the same cycle. No one else can mirror them as deeply as you once did, because you didn't just react. You truly saw them. You understood them better than they understood themselves, and for a moment, that made them feel real. Losing you means losing the one person who ever touched the fragile humanity they tried so hard to hide. But instead of cherishing that, they destroyed it. And now they have to live with the consequence. No one mirrors them with sincerity anymore. Their new relationships may look glamorous, but they're shallow. They are trapped inside the empty world they created. A world with no depth, no real connection, only recycled roles. Worse still, they know it. They feel the absence. But instead of turning inward to face and heal, they keep running, keep blaming, keep painting over the cracks with illusions. Because true healing, the real kind, requires something they don't have, the courage to face the truth. And the truth is, you didn't hurt them, you simply stopped giving them power. And in the narcissist's world, that is the greatest loss they can't recover from. When you walked away from that relationship, not with rage, not with revenge, but with clarity and emotional detachment, you did something no one before you had ever managed to do. You broke the cycle. The cycle that narcissists repeat over and over again. Idealize, control, hurt. Then lure the victim back with a sweet, fake version of themselves. They were used to people breaking down, but you didn't. You didn't scream for justice. You didn't beg them to understand. You didn't need to prove you were right and they were wrong. You simply let go. And that, in the narcissist's world, is the ultimate act of rebellion. Because when you leave, with true peace, you no longer belong in their script. They can't cast you as the crazy ex, the betrayer, or the one who always comes back. They can't rewrite the story if you're no longer in it. And your absence, quiet, strong, and not needing to be understood, collapses their entire structure of control. But you didn't just dismantle a toxic system, you also opened a new path for yourself, a path no longer driven by guilt, fear of abandonment, or the haunting belief that you were never good enough to be loved. Every step you take now declares, I deserve peace, real love, and a life free from manipulation. You start to relearn how to live, not revolving around someone else. You sleep better, eat better, breathe deeper. You begin to feel yourself again, not the distorted version that once bent to fit the narcissist, but the real you, the one buried beneath the dust of manipulation. And the beautiful part is, you don't need anyone to witness this journey. You're not doing it for them to see, not for them to regret. You're doing it for yourself, because you know the deepest healing doesn't come when someone says, "I'm sorry," but when you say to yourself, "I don't need to live in this pain one more day." The narcissist may never change. They may go on crafting new versions of themselves, new relationships, new stories to paint over a world they cannot control. But you are different. You chose the road few have the courage to take, not walking away out of hopelessness, but because you finally found your way back to yourself. There was no grand explosion, no dramatic ending, no cinematic scene to mark the collapse. And yet, that is the bitter truth the narcissist must face. They lost everything the moment you stopped feeling. No more pain, no more fear, no more reaction, and no more need for them to define your worth. Their collapse happens silently, like a tower slowly losing its foundation brick by brick. On the outside, it still stands, but inside, it's hollow. And then, when no one is looking, when no one cares, it crumbles in the dark. No applause, no witnesses, just them, alone with the undeniable truth. They never truly controlled you. They only ever controlled the pain you carried. But this video isn't meant to feed bitter satisfaction. It's not here to make you feel like you got revenge. The purpose is not for you to win over anyone. It's to help you understand. You were never weak for loving deeply. You became strong the moment you stopped. You don't need their collapse to confirm your healing. You don't need their suffering to believe you are right. You don't need validation from someone who never understood sincerity. You just need the peace you now hold and the truth that it came from within. True freedom doesn't come when they take responsibility. It comes when you no longer need them to, when you no longer wait for an apology, no longer try to understand why, no longer revisit the story searching for justice. You simply let go, not in bitterness, but in quiet release. And that very thing, that small silent moment no one claps for, is your greatest victory. Because in the end, it's not that they lost, it's not even that you won, it's that the truth won. The truth that you were never a victim, you were a survivor, the one who walked away, the one who no longer reflects them, the one who reclaimed your life and lived.